Cashflow Diary podcast, episode 555.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we have a special treat. Now, for those of you who have been listening for the many hundreds of episodes that we have done, you know something. You know that it is very, very rare. In fact, you can count on your fingers the number of people who have been on the show more than once. And hey, we happen to have that today because, well, what's interesting is that there's a conversation that's out there in the marketplace about the definition of success. And I have someone with me who is definitely can be that image for many of us, and most importantly, can give us a new definition so that we might journey on to what our personal success look like. I'm, of course, speaking of none other than Sharon Lechter. She's the former CEO of Rich Dad and Pay Your Family First. She's an entrepreneur, #1 New York Times and internationally best-selling author. In fact, you probably, especially if you've been listening for a while, have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or maybe the book, Why We Want You to Be Rich, or maybe 3 Feet from Gold, Turning Your Obstacles into Opportunities. It's likely you already know who she is and you're familiar with her work. But what's interesting is that now we're going to talk about her newest book, In 4 Years, Success and Something Greater, Your Magic Key. I'm kind of excited about this because this is one of those things where we as entrepreneurs can sometimes compare our results, our ideals to someone else's, and that can get us in our way. So let's get ready to listen, love, and learn from Sharon Lechter. Sharon, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm so happy to be back with you. It's been too long.
Yes, I think it's about 5 years, if memory serves, and it has been quite some time. So let's start right there. So what's been going on the last 5 years?
Well, it's been kind of crazy. Many of your listeners may not know, but I did obviously build the Rich Dad company, and then was working with the foundation, and Napoleon Hill Foundation, did 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, and Think and Grow Rich for Women. And while I was writing Think and Grow Rich for Women, I lost my youngest son. And so many people listening probably have had something in their life that stopped in their tracks. Well, that certainly stopped me in my tracks, and was really kind of living life in neutral. I was still working plenty hard, but stopped writing. And about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, I said, this is crazy. If I'm not going to have the same zest to play big in my life, I probably should retire. And got a little pushback from family and friends, and I think even from my son, who was basically saying, "Get over it, Mom. There's more for you to do." So I made the decision, instead of to retire, I call it refire. And in doing so, it was like flipping a switch and really opening myself to the possibilities. I really want people to know that, because sometimes we have to close one door for other doors to open in our lives. And for me, it was changing my attitude to one of really mourning and being numb to one of, okay, there's more for me to do. And in doing that, amazing things started happening for me, and I got the passion to write again. And so my first book in over 4 years, Success and Something Greater, is coming out in a few weeks. And it's it really has opened my eyes to the fact that each and every one of us, we have things that stop us, absolutely. And it's a, I'll never look at life the same again. You're not supposed to outlive your children, but at the same time, I'm still here, and I want to do what I can to continue um, living life to its fullest, and in doing that, creating information that can help people take control of their financial lives.
Okay, so you've just dropped a whole bunch of stuff that we have to unpack for a second, because there was a phrase that you said at the beginning that I can resonate with, and I want to hear more about. When you said you were living life in neutral, I mean, it gives me this connotation that there's probably a number of people who are in neutral right now listening, but what do you mean by it?
Well, we can be as simple as, say, when you drive somewhere and you don't even remember driving there because it was just something you do all the time. And that's so many of us in life, we get that way. It's just we're just doing the same thing every single day. I talk about, and we get out of school, we get a career, we get comfortable, and that comfort turns into complacency.
Mm.
And the thing that changes us when we're in a state of complacency or neutral is a crisis, and that crisis throws our life into chaos. And the only way to get out of chaos is to become creative again. But what happens when you have something like what happened to me, where it just really debilitates you? There's a process of mourning that I think everybody has to go through, but at some point you have to realize you're still here. You're still here, and you are where you are based on the choices you made before today. So you've had your successes, you've had your learning opportunities. I don't like to say failures. And there are other people that could benefit from what you know. And as the more you start giving, the more you're going to start feeling life again. And looking at how you can support others will get you out of that neutral and back into drive.
Got it. And I've so in listening to your story, it raises a very, I think, interesting question, because when you say we've had our successes, you've certainly had your successes. I mean, when you think about writing Rich Dad Poor Dad and being around that, I mean, the literally tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of lives you have impacted, obviously mine included, and many, many more. It would be well justified to, as you said, retire. Yet you mentioned that your circle around you gave you pushback about that idea. What could you say in terms of just being successful? How important has it been for you to have people around you who, and I guess in this case, say that you're not done yet, get back in the ring?
Well, I think the importance of your environment and your associates are it's paramount. If you just imagine putting yourself in an environment as a child's funeral, right? Immediately you feel your whole body slouch and is sad. Put yourself in another environment where it's Motown and people are dancing, all right? You feel yourself lifted up. Well, that's how you place yourself every single day. Where are you putting yourself in the place of greatest potential? Just ask yourself, are you putting yourself in the place of greatest potential? And when we have sadness, or if we're scared, if we're fearful, fear either motivates us or paralyzes us. And when that happens, we want to hide away. We want to get into a dark room. We want to, and when you're in mourning, the same thing. And that's only going to continue the negative spiral. It's when you open yourself up and allow other people to be there to support you. And many times, particularly for entrepreneurs, you have your ups and downs. Well, if you have the right people around you, they're going to keep your head above water when you feel like you're sinking. And making sure you have the right advisors, the right mentors that help open doors for you. It's absolutely essential. Now, in school, we're taught to do it on our own. All right, by ourselves. If you did teamwork back then, it was called cheating. Well, in the real world, business is a team sport, and you want to never be the smartest person in the room. You want to surround yourself with people who challenge you, people who are strong where you are weak, so that you have the greatest opportunity, and that's putting yourself in the place of greatest potential.
I like that phrase a lot because it can give one a perspective on how to evaluate some of their environments. And side note, when you mentioned Motown, I started thinking of Detroit, and then I'm like, I'm going to Detroit for the first time here in a few weeks, so I got a little excited about that. But just you mentioning that in the same way that you were talking about, the funerals, etc., it totally changed like my state. I was like, wow, sometimes you don't even have to physically do much different, it seems like, in order for you to receive the benefits of this changed environment.
Exactly. And that's the power of autosuggestion, which is from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, is what are you putting in your brain? Are you putting negative thoughts, or are you putting positive empowerment, empowering suggestions that help you see the world of possibility?
So when it comes down to it, because of your viewpoint, because of the things that we've all experienced life in various stages and gone through many, many, many different things, there can be some common things that are considered quote unquote successful. I mean, you mentioned school earlier. Obviously, in that environment, the success is often defined by a letter grade of, A or whatever it is in your particular country. When you say success and something greater, what do you mean exactly?
Well, I think we talk about success and contribution. And when I was a little kid, my father would ask me every night, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today?
Mm.
And he's been gone for 14 years, but I still ask myself that every night. And I think when we look at success, yes, success can be numbers, but I think Mother Teresa was very successful. It had nothing to do with money, right? It had to do with impact. So when I talk about my play big movement, or playing big again, it's being number one in your field, living your legacy, because your legacy is created every single day with the lives that you touch, and creating maximum impact. And it was that thought process that I just grew up with. Have I added value to someone's life today, that would not allow me to retire? Because it was like, okay, that's what feeds me. It feeds me to know I am of service. And it's retire to me is a negative connotation. We might want to refire, change your focus, change what you're doing, but at the same time, always looking forward as to how you can add value to someone else's life.
Okay, so let's talk about this concept of by the way, love the word refire. Because I'm like, yeah, because it just, I don't know, it's exciting. And I can imagine that there's a number of individuals who are listening to you and I right now. They're at various stages. Maybe they're coming off one of their largest, what they consider to be defeats, losses, or they had something outside of their control that is feeling debilitating to them. What was it? How did you manage to get to the point to actually refire? Not a false start, but an actual refire. Hello there, entrepreneur. This is Jay Massey, and what I want to say to you is that the number one mistake that I have ever made in business, number one, has been waiting too long to do the books, waiting too long to get the bookkeepers, the accountants, the CPAs, the CFOs involved, and I don't want you to make that same mistake. That mistake cost me over six figures, and now for a significant discount, you have the ability to get your books together using FreshBooks. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to gofreshbooks.com/cashflowdiary. Again, that's gofreshbooks.com/cashflowdiary. FreshBooks is the easy to use software designed to help you, the small business owner, the freelancer, get organized and save time on invoicing, getting paid faster, keeping those books in order so that it becomes a bonus for you to do your taxes as opposed to a burden. Go over to gofreshbooks.com/cashflowdiary and get started today. And now let's get back to the rest of the story.
I think it was, and I don't often share this, but my son was 30 and he took his own life. And so there is a tremendous amount of guilt as a mother, trying to do everything we could to support him. And to get to the point where I was willing to be vulnerable to talk about it
Mm.
was huge for me because I felt like a failure. I felt so embarrassed. Obviously, I was extremely sad because I'd lost my son. And I had someone say to me, Sharon, do you understand how many people that you could help if they realize that, and I'll use what their phrase was, someone like you has gone through this too. And it was I couldn't even say the word vulnerable. Say, I said, you're telling me I need to be blah, 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 vulnerable? And spent my life trying to be, good at what I was doing. You didn't want to show vulnerability. And when I made that decision to start talking about it, it was, I remember I was actually in Europe at an event there. I was speaking, and I was just flooded with people in response to me sharing my story who had lost children or had life-changing issues. And I realized that vulnerability is transparency, and people can connect with you more closely. And when you have something that happens in your life, whether it be a loss like I had, or whether you have a quote unquote failure, I want people to understand it's an occurrence. It's not a definition. And too many people who have a failure in their life feel like it defines who they are. It doesn't. It's just something that happened to you, and you just need to pick yourself back up. And in my case, refire, find a new way to direct your energies. And when you make that decision internally, the world starts to change around you.
So, how would you say all of this has led? I mean, in many of the authors that I've spoken to, there's usually a reason for them personally that led to the book that they're currently working on or writing or have written in the past. I'm curious to know what motivates success in something greater now, today. Like, is this something you think you could have written 10 years ago?
That's a great question, and it's going to sound like I set you up with that question. I did not. 10 years ago, we released 3 Feet from Gold, which you so kindly mentioned when you introduced me. 3 Feet from Gold was the first book I did with the foundation, which was talking about how successful people made it through downturns in the economy. And so we talked about perseverance. We talked about having that faith to stay through the downside, making that power of association. And it still is a very good book today. We're actually coming out with a 10th anniversary edition in a few months. But when we made the decision, and since then I did Outwitting the Devil and Think and Grow Rich for Women, but Success is Something Greater was Greg Reed and I coming back together 10 years later to say, let's do a book that doesn't talk about downturns. It really talks about the inner belief of successful people. What was their core strength? What was it that helped them create success? Because it isn't the same for everybody. Some people, look at the innovation, or some people look at empowering their people. And each one of the people we interviewed in the book are very successful in their own right. But what they credit their success to, their secret sauce, their magic key, are all different and all unique. And I think it was very inspirational for me, and I think for everyone that has been a part of the journey with us, to see the world of possibilities. Success is not one single pathway. Success is not the number of zeros in your bank account. My definition of success is how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror. And each of the individuals we interviewed had a unique story on how they created success in their life. One man who's a dear friend of mine, he invented the ski-mobile, right? Or this, not the ski-mobile, on the water ski, jet ski. And but he sold that patent for like $75,000. And so that became a $1 billion industry. And so we were talking to him, do you regret it? And he said, no, that $75,000 allowed me to keep my house. I was just about to lose my house, allowed me to pay my employees, and allowed me to get to the next deal. So his whole philosophy is sometimes you make a deal to get to the next deal. And he ended up inventing the bucking bronco that you see in bars. He invented the little car that was on Fantasy Island. And then he had a very good relationship with NASCAR. So he created the little die-cast metal NASCAR cars and went on to sell that company for like $240 million, right? So the whole concept of opening your mind is sometimes you make a deal to get to the next deal. So powerful concept. Someone else, Bob Bondurant, who's a very famous race car driver, another dear friend of mine, he says, know the track. As successful as he was, he would always go in early and drive the track. Know the track. Do your homework, do your due diligence, and then always look where you want to go. Don't get sidetracked. Too many entrepreneurs, we have this shiny object syndrome, right? And he said, no, keep your eye on where you want to go. Focus on where you want to be. And, just tons of nuggets like that really help people focus in on what their definition of success is.
So a number of us, and myself included, there was a time where it's, you can have this opinion or thought process that as you're building your business, as you're going out there, you're growing your cash flow, you're doing all of the right things. Success, quote unquote, is supposed to go in a straight line up and to the right in perpetuity. Now, I'm curious to know how important would you say experiencing failure events is in order to even define or refine your definition of success?
I don't know a single person that is a true success that hasn't experienced failure along the way. I always say failure is a learning opportunity. And as far as a straight line to success, I've never seen one. If you think about a sailor, as you go from one point to another, they don't go in a straight line unless they're using their motor, right? They just recalibrate. Going back to Bob Bondurant, they know where they want to go. So wherever they end up, they recalibrate to get there. You have successes that take you really high in the sky, and then all of a sudden the next day you may have something that takes you below that straight line. The issue is not how many times you fall down, it's making sure you get back up and and refocusing on the end goal. And sometimes you have to sit down and say, okay, maybe that end goal needs to be adjusted. Maybe I need to adjust that. Maybe I'm even more successful than I thought, so I need to increase my goal. Or maybe it's like, you know what? I'm realizing that if I go in this market to the left as opposed to this market, I'm going to be much more successful. And so it's understanding your market, listening to your customers. When we launched Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we never expected to be a book company. We wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a brochure to sell the game Cash Flow. All right. And the world said, no. Your company is Rich Dad, not Cash Flow. And we want more books. And so we ended up saying, well, we'll be a trilogy. So we wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, thinking we were done. Oh, no. 15 books later,
right?
We co-authored over a 10-year period. And then I launched another whole brand, Rich Dad Advisors brand, for another 12 books. Okay. So we were listening to the market and responding to what the market wanted, finding those gaps, finding those opportunities. That's another one of the stories in the book, identifying the gap in the market. The most successful businesses either solve a problem or serve a need. And if you remind yourself every morning what problem you're solving, what need you're serving, it takes it outside of you, gives you that bigger plane, and gives you that innovation to jump out of bed and keep going.
Now, you mentioned something about, you mentioned the words end goal. And I know for a number of people listening, that's literally where they're stuck in some way, shape, or form, is being able to keep an eye on the prize, as they say, or on that finish line, and understanding that final destination, what you are trying to accomplish. I am with you. And you also mentioned the idea of having to increase the goal. And I know myself, I've found myself in that place. I've also found myself underestimating my potential to reach any particular goal. And that's usually when it's like, oh, wow, I guess we can do more. But what I want to ask you is about the individuals who feel like they need that change, but they're not quite clear yet on that end goal. They just know that they want something different, and maybe they feel like they're floating, and without necessarily direction, they just like, I just want a business because I really don't want to work a job anymore. How on earth are they to get onto this path of success and or something greater?
Well, I think you have to listen to your gut, definitely. That's, the sixth sense is Think and Grow Rich. But also, I have the personal success equation that we put together in 3 Feet from Goal, which is analyzing your passion and your talents and understanding your associations and what things I need to choose. And, you and I didn't discuss this, but I've got a download that helps people go. It's not a sales tool at all. It's just a support for people really trying to define their success and what they want out of life. And you just put in bit.ly /success equation. It's a download for you. But at the end of the day, listen to your gut. And also, when we talk about, you've heard the BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals, sometimes those can be debilitating because when you're questioning yourself, it's really hard. I tell people the analogy of losing weight. I'm telling myself I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, I'm going to give up after the first 4 days. But if I put benchmarks that help me get there, so I say, okay, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. Well, when you've lost 5 pounds, you feel good about yourself because you've reached a goal. That's where your self-confidence increases. And then you say, okay, I'm going to lose another 5. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're a whole lot closer to the 50. And so are you setting big, hairy, audacious goals and frustrating yourself because you're not allowing yourself to celebrate your little wins? My team used to laugh at me, but now they understand. I said, we have to have little wins. Celebrate the little wins, because entrepreneurs, most of us are type A personalities and we're never satisfied. And so sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm going to celebrate the little win and feel good about myself. Let my team feel good about it themselves. And then say, okay, great. Take a moment to celebrate and then set the next little win. And all of a sudden you're going to be so much closer to that big goal.
Can I share something with you? This is, I think it's kind of silly, but interesting. Just one of the times for me, there was a period where my little win was I got out of bed and brushed my teeth. Done. That was it. That was the reason to succeed, because things were just not going in the direction that I wanted them to be going. And so I'm curious, how little is little when you say little?
Well, after losing my son, it was getting out of bed. Everyone, little wins can be, think about your children, little kids, let them set a goal and achieve it, even if it's literally making their bed. That's how they build their self-confidence. And in today's environment, we have way too much easy credit, and we forgot about delayed gratification. And that's why so many of our kids they don't know how to suffer a setback, because they get everything they want when they want it. And it's so important as parents or aunts and uncles or concerned adults is to allow our children to set a goal and achieve it, and then celebrate with them. So that's builds your self-confidence. Same as an adult. I've lived with depression with my son, and so many people. It is an epidemic, and getting out of bed and brushing your teeth is a little win. But then allowing other people in your space that are there to support you is the next step you need to do, and realize that you're still here for a reason. And there are people out there that need you and things that you can do to support them. And, it's very difficult when I see people that are in the depth of depression, because it's hard to get to them. And I have them read Outwitting the Devil so that they can kind of get out of their own head and realize that they're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that are suffering. And if the more we can shed light on it and put that hand out to give them a hand up, I think it's important for all of us to identify those people who need a little injection of love and life.
Okay. And now that we understand what, little looks like, you've also started, the Play Big movement, you've got the Facebook group, etc. when you say big, well, what does that mean?
It means different things to different people, which is why I wrote Success and Something Greater. Playing big can be, reaching out to do a deal with Disney. That's pretty big. Playing big can also be reaching out to a mentor to have them support you in your business. Realizing what you haven't been doing, what you can do to take yourself to the next level. And that's why I created the Play Big movement, because most of my career,
Mm-hmm.
I played at that level with Disney's and Warner Brothers. And it was when I decided to, um, go into my own little shell and play small, I realized that I was not doing myself a favor. I wasn't doing anybody else a favor. And so by playing big again on my platform, I said, I want to share what I'm doing so that other people can be inspired to do it in their lives as well, which is why I created the free Facebook group, Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter, and created some online programs, because being an entrepreneur can be very lonely.
Mm.
Even if you have a bunch of employees, they're all looking to you to make the decisions. And so
Right.
if you don't surround yourself with a peer of mastermind folks to support you, or with a mentor, it gets very lonely and scary. And so I wanted to provide an opportunity for people to come together and help each other, learn from each other. That power of association in today's world is even more important than it was 20 years ago. Speed to market is very crucial today. So if you've got something new, a new idea, find someone who's always there and collaborate with them. Do a joint ventures, do a strategic alliance, and that's where I excel. I love to work with my clients. I do mentoring, supporting them and identifying the possibilities that are right there in front of them, but they might be hesitant to reach out. So we can structure them being able to find that right partner, that right strategic alliance, open the door for them to be able to spread what they're doing to a much larger audience.
So when it comes down to it, there's a number of entrepreneurs who think they're playing big, but yet, have you ever run into a situation to where you meet someone who could be believing that for them it's big, but you see more in them, and if so, what do you say?
Every day. I see that every day. I usually, if I see something, well, first I'll say, can I give you a little feedback?
Got it.
Uh,
That's the phrase to listen for right there. Got it.
yeah, yes, I want permission, because there's nothing worse than unsolicited advice.
Right.
And then I also, this the power of the question. I say, have you ever considered?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because when you make a statement, whether it's there's no open dialogue. When you ask a question, it opens the brain. People want to answer the question. It triggers the entrepreneurial spirit. And so when I ask a question, they're saying, "Oh, she knows something about this. Maybe she knows something I don't know." And my goal is for them to say, "Tell me more."
Interesting. I can only imagine the number of times where if someone has there ever been a time where you did that and someone didn't go down that path? They just, can I give you some advice? And they either say no, or they don't get that you're trying to help them in some way, shape, or form, and they just
Oh,
miss that.
oh, certainly. And sometimes people say, "Oh yeah, I thought that it won't work."
Oh, I see.
Some people are can be coached and others cannot. And that's easy, because it keeps me safe, because I just said, if you can I give you a little feedback, and almost always they'll say yes. But when I say, have you thought of something, if they immediately try to cut off the conversation, yeah, I've been there, done that, it's not going to work. Fine. you know
Got it. Interesting. Now, as we continue talking about the something greater part, because I'm curious to know, in the interviews and in the stories of the book, what is typically some of the greater things that people that are pulling people forward or driving them?
well, I think we talk about their legacy, what they're doing outside of the business.
Okay.
There's we talk about Cynthia Kersey with her Unstoppable Foundation, where she's actually changing the economic model in Africa, building universities and schools and whole economic environments in the community she's going with. Someone else who left a very successful position as an attorney and joined his father and is now taking medical supplies all over the globe. The something greater is what moves you. What is it that you want to do outside of yourself, outside of your business? I have a dear friend, he's not in the book, but just as another example, who just is a billionaire. He sold his business. His business was cardboard box and packaging. So that wasn't his passion, but it helped fuel his passion. And he gives away millions of dollars to support organizations that he believes in. And so understanding that you can make a difference in the world, and the more successful you become, the bigger difference you can make. And understanding that, God is a God of abundance, not a God of scarcity. So there's nothing wrong with becoming successful. And when you make a lot of money, it makes you just more of who you really are. If you're generous, you're going to be more generous. If you're not, you're not. So the issue is creating success in your life so that you can make a larger positive impact on the world, however that looks to you.
I like it 100% because I think it frees a lot of people from judging ourselves against someone else. Was that part of your objective in creating this work?
It absolutely is, because you'll notice not two people in the book are the same, and yet they are all happy, they're all successful, and they're all making huge contribution.
I like it a lot. Now, for those that have listened this far and want to find out more, either about Play Big or get a copy of the book or just find out what's going on with you online, what's going to be the best way for them to track you down?
Well, they can find me at my website, Sharon Lechter, SharonLechter.com. Join the Play Big movement on Facebook, and certainly go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble online or to your local bookstore or airport or buy Success and Something Greater, Your Magic Key.
Got it. Now, as we wind down here, I have a final question for you because I'm curious to hear your answer, because I think it's going to be, rather unique. I know that there are individuals who started this particular episode, this particular conversation with you and I, and as they've been listening in, they are now at what I like to call the precipice of decision. They started in one spot, and now they're at that point. They're probably saying things to themselves like, you know what, that's it. If Sharon can refire, so can I. If she can pick herself back up and then go play big, it's time for me to play big. They are drawing that proverbial line in the sand. Now, Sharon, like I know, that when we as humans draw that line or make those decisions, we often have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice. And it's a voice that reminds us of, it's not going to work this time. You remember what happened last time you tried that? And what are you going to do? Really? You? And for some people, they're related to that voice. So I'm curious to hear if someone's ready to play big, they're at that line in the sand. But this time it's going to be different. They're going to do what you say, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
Remind themselves and re-listen to this podcast, re-listen to this on a regular basis, and know that there is more for you to do. And the only person stopping you is you, and that little voice that says you're not good enough, or easy for her to say. Believe me, it's not easy for me to say. I've been there, done that. And I have a mantra that I use when I decided to go into entrepreneurship, and instead of asking myself why, I ask myself, why not? Why not take that step? Why not do that one thing that's going to step outside your comfort zone? Because your magic will happen outside your comfort zone. And so push yourself to take that step and seek other opportunities. Come to my website, buy the book Outwitting the Devil if you still feel like you're boxed in fear. Read it, and it will help open your mind to the world of possibilities and identify those things that are holding you back.
I definitely just want to say that I appreciate you as a human for being willing to, tackle your own demons, share that stuff, understand the impact that you can make, and most importantly, do something about it. Not just sit back and go, well, I'll let someone else do it, because you that is a decision you absolutely could have made, because you had already made your mark on this world, so to speak. And I definitely just want to say thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Well, thank you so much. It's been my absolute pleasure, and I appreciate it. And I hope we'll be together before another 5 years passes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to SharonLechter.com. That means pick up a copy of her book. Pick up 2 if you have to. Give 1 to a friend, because maybe you know someone who needs to hear not only this episode, but also hear the examples and understand that success can, is, and always has been a personal definition. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, whatever you do, please just follow through. Do something. Take that small win and celebrate it. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.